welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to Sweden and some more ice driving. This time I'm with VW, exploring their 4Motion four-wheel drive system. The idea of this video is I'm currently in a Golf R, and I want to compare the four-wheel drive system in this Golf R with the four-wheel drive system you get in an ID.7, because they are very, very different. They're both clearly powering all four wheels, but one has an internal combustion engine connected to it, a prop shaft, and is always coupled together. The other is basically two electric motors. I'm on Nordic studded tyres. Get my nose in. A bit more nose. Oh. If you aren't hitting the snowbanks here, you're not trying hard enough. So yes, welcome to Arvidsjaur in northern Sweden. It's about -15 today. The premise of this video is to be comparing VW's 4Motion all-wheel drive system on an internal combustion engine car with an all-electric car, because they're very different platforms. First up, we're going to be playing in this Golf R, just shy of 330 horsepower, all-wheel drive. We're going to be on this incredible high-speed ice handling circuit here on a frozen lake. I'm here with the Drive Talk podcast, by the way. You can probably just make out Pat there and then Joe in the car behind. We filmed an amazing episode with Benny from VW, who is their chief development driver and factory driver. He's racing at the N24 this year. Amazing experience, and he showed us how to drive cars around this ice lake. And yeah, it was alarming. But our task in hand today then, so here we go. This is a Golf R. The big thing that makes this a bit different from the cars we might have at home are these tyres. So these are Nordic spike tyres, but they've got quite an aggressive spike. They've got 200 of these little 5mm spikes on each tyre, which give a huge amount of grip, because we are on ice. Underneath this snow is ice. You can kind of just see it there. Very, very low grip. The 4Motion system, clearly four-wheel drive. We've got a 2-litre internal combustion engine under the bonnet driving the front wheels, but then that's connected via a transmission system to the rear axle as well. But this car does some really clever stuff. It does torque vectoring. It enables basically power to be sent to the rear of the car. And that's not just about providing ultimate grip in snowy conditions like this. That's also about providing fun, because what that allows me to do is drift the car. You can really play with the balance of the car. So the first thing we're going to do is head out in the Golf R onto the high-speed handling circuit, and then we'll jump out of the Golf and we're going to go into an ID.7 GTX, which is the GTI equivalent in VW's all-electric lineup. And that has a 4Motion four-wheel drive system, but it's an electric car with two motors, so it's very, very different. So let's go and have some fun out on the ice. Okay, let me try and talk you through a lap and also how this car behaves, this four-wheel drive system. So firstly, settings-wise, I've got the ESC to ESC Sport and the drive mode to an individual setting called Special, which is their Nürburgring Special setting. And that is the perfect setting, apparently, for this type of grip. We're on Nordic tyres. They've got quite big studs in them. I think they're 5mm studs, and we are on frozen water. This is a lake, so that is ice, although actually in certain lights it still looks a little bit like tarmac. So the first thing is, I guess early four-wheel drive systems were really there to kind of help you, I don't know, go up hills in the snow, and they tended to be quite understeery and front of the car bias, and it was quite difficult to have fun in them. I've always been a big fan of having four-wheel drive cars because it gives you a lot of confidence. This latest 4Motion system does this really cool thing called torque vectoring, and on the public highway it's a very difficult thing to demonstrate because you've got so much grip. It's very difficult to get the car loose, and you'd never be able to do that on the public road, right? I mean, it would be impossible. But what I'm doing, a couple of things. So as I approach the corner, especially the slightly slower speed corners, I just want a little bit of rotation. So there, so I'm actually using my left foot just to get the weight transfer onto the front axle. And what you're actually doing is just steering a little bit first. So you steer a tiny bit first to get the tyres turned, and then a quick, not a jab on the brakes, but a firm application of the brakes. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to come down in a second. On the brakes, that just unsettles the back of the car. There. Then I can just play on the throttle. I've got power coming to the rear axle, and I can just be patient and drive the car around the corner. Again, front brake, get the front end tucked in, not quite done it there. There we go, back end's out, and then again, be patient. And what the four-wheel drive system's doing, they are coupled together. You can't decouple them because the rear axle is driven from the engine. But it's a very clever trick that the systems are doing. There we go, I've now got, that's better. Now I'm in a drift, and I'll just keep it there. Keep turning it in, keep turning it in. I'm still on the throttle. Back end's coming around. I'm going to just graze the bank, the snow bank a little bit. Get a little bit of brake, front end biting in. Be patient. And it's a remarkable system. You know, a lot of people will go, oh, rear-wheel drive, you've got to be, rear-wheel drive is the way you have fun. And I've not that long come back from Kalmar Spirit of Speed in Finland, ice driving in 911s with rear-wheel drive, and clearly that's all the power to the back. What I'm finding here, and it's fascinating to kind of see the difference between four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, is the rear-wheel drive, or this four-wheel drive system, I can use the front end, just the front grip, just to pull me out of the corners a little bit. Now, how does this translate into road car driving? Well, clearly you're not going to be getting the slip angles I'm getting at the moment, and it does have a drift mode, but actually the grip we've got here, I've got a bit too far into that on the gas. And then actually all you need to, sometimes in that one, I just lifted off the gas a little bit, and the car, again, the momentum or the weight just tips onto the nose, the rear comes loose, and it just starts to rotate a little bit. And as soon as it starts to rotate, you can grab it on the throttle there, and now just aiming, looking where I want to go, looking at the apex, looking over there, looking over there, looking over there, looking over there. Massive skids. Get some grip on this. Really interesting. As soon as you get a tyre on the snow at the side, the grip levels increase significantly. Again, looking over there. I want to go over there, not at the snowbank. You kind of almost go where you look. Whoa, big skid. Again, brake, get the front end in. Look where I go, 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 look where I go. This one's a really tight, so flick in.
I am stuck in the snowbank.
There you go. Well, that was a whole lot of fun. Next up, we're going to jump in this. So this is a VW ID.7 GTX. It's their equivalent of a GTI. It has about 282 horsepower, and it has 4Motion all-wheel drive. Although the big difference is this is a battery electric car, and it's actually a dual motor system, so it's got a front motor and a rear motor, and I'll explain more about how the 4Motion four-wheel drive system works when we get in the car. The other big difference, however, is tyre-wise. They are very, very different. These studs here are much, much smaller, so the levels of grip aren't going to be quite as good. We can also not allow to take it on the main handling circuit, so we've got our own private little track just over there that we're going to be doing some handling, and I think it's a bit tight and twisty, but let's take out the ID.7 and see what the difference is between a 4Motion system in an ICE car, no pun intended, and a 4Motion system in a battery electric. For the ID.7, a couple of things are very different. We're on different tyres. These are slightly more road-focused tyres. They've only got 2 mil studs in them rather than the 5 mil on the ICE Experience school cars. And as you can see, that means they have quite a lot less grip. The other thing is that we're on a different handling circuit, because the only cars that are allowed on the big circuit are the Golf Rs with the slightly bigger studs on. And the challenge for that is that this circuit, as you can see, is really narrow and very technical, and this car is big. It's really long, so when the back does go, which you can provoke, it just now, as it's sideways, it's pretty much filling the track. So it's a much more difficult car to play with. I'm certainly driving at a lot less pace than I was on the circuit in the Golf R. However, we can still provoke the same kind of reaction. We can still get the rear of the car just by lifting off or a little brake. You get the rear of the car playing and coming out, and I'm in sport mode, and I've got the ESC set to ESC Sport. If you turn the ESC all the way off in this ID.7, it becomes really difficult to manage because the wheels spin up, and getting slides is much, much more difficult. I'm at probably half the speed I was in the Golf R. But let's talk about the 4Motion system, because it's very, very different. In the Golf R, as I said, it's an internal combustion engine, and it has traditional front-wheel drive and then a drive shaft to a rear differential that provides power to the rear wheels. And the four-wheel drive system manages the delivery of that power between the front and rear axle. And we've got that torque splitter effect, and that gives you the ability to play with the car really nicely. In this car, well, this is an EV for a start, but the big difference here is it's a dual motor EV. So there's a motor on the front axle and a motor on the rear axle. I'm gonna just use the snowbank a little bit to keep going, Peter, keep going. It's so difficult to drive this car. So it's got a front axle and a rear axle, and then electronics deliver the messages to the motors to split the torque between the front and rear axle. So when I do want to get a slide on like that, I mean, it's still possible, of course, but now it's the two motors working independently of one another. They are decoupled from one another. Now, on the ice, I'm clearly exaggerating slides and provoking oversteer and having a lot of fun. But in the real world, what that translates to in terms of driving experience is the decoupling of that front and rear motor mean that the car can deliver the torque to the axle that needs it at that particular moment. Whether that's the front axle pulling you out of a corner, whether that's the rear axle as the you know, to give you a slightly more dynamic feel. And it's a very clever system. So, you know, when you think about, you've just got to be so patient in this car. When you think about VW 4Motion systems, they have the same badge. You think, oh, it's four-wheel drive, but the way they work is incredibly different. And I'm gonna hit that. Oh dear me. See, the beauty of these ice courses is the snowbanks, although the snowbanks are really quite hard. The other thing that makes sliding this car around a little bit more tricky, and I found this when I was out with Maserati ice driving back end of last year, is you have no audible cues. There's no noise, right? So in terms of holding a gear, I've got a single gear, and therefore it's just a little bit more difficult to manage or understand the relationship between what my brain and my seat are feeling, and then what my leg and my foot are putting into the throttle, and then what the car's doing after that. It's just far more difficult. The weight of this car means that if you are a bit too aggressive on corner entry, its default mode really is a bit of understeer. Then if I just do that, so if you are too aggressive, then you get understeer. And because we've not got quite the size of spike that we had on the Golf R, a brake isn't, if I just lift off and then just provoke the back end to come round, keep my foot in, and a little bit of lift, just let the back end come out again. So you can manage the slide, you can keep it there, but it really requires a lot of thought and patience. If you rush this car, just again let off a little bit of a jab just to get the back end coming out, keep it in, and then we just lift off again, back end just comes loose. So you're just balancing your throttle inputs with the cars, but the second you start going too fast, you get a bit of understeer. That's all right, there we go. And then we're gonna flick it around that way, bit of a squirt of gas, come out of there. It's fascinating. No, turn it back on again. Oh no. Can I have a Tiguan on track 2, please? It's a nice view up here.
Mate, that looks incredible. I'm gonna have to stop and get a picture.
Yeah, please. So now we're back out on the Golf R high-speed experience centre. This is an experience, by the way, the members of the public can pay to come on. We're on a press event as it happens, but it is by far and away the best fun you can possibly think of. Just hang it out, hang it out, hang it out a little bit. Just touch the back end of the car on the snowbank. But if you want to really get your head around these cars, and it is remarkable what they'll do and just the level of skill you can acquire, just look at that. In a really short space of time, we're almost begging them to stop us driving after a while. We've been driving so much. But conclusion about the 4Motion system, just get the car nice and sideways there, look, a little bit of left foot brake. It's going to be a big one, that one. Oh, I so nearly get that. Oh dear. Yeah, the torque vectoring is so clever. It's a seamless transition between front and rear axle, and you can just get in these conditions, clearly it's a lot of fun, but in the normal world, it just means that the car's constantly finding the best levels of grip. I'll be honest and say that the ID.7 was a far more difficult car to do this on. For two reasons. I think the spikes just didn't give the same level of grip as these ones do. It's amazing how that extra little size of spike really does make the world of difference. Yeah, get the limiter. They do a rally taxi that goes around here at night time, and they had a Polo rally car running yesterday with really big spikes on it, and it's just taken these two big trenches around that corner. It just drags the car in. But yeah, an electric car is a much more difficult proposition when it comes to sliding and getting the car sideways. You can just balance this car on the throttle so much more, and just honestly, you just end up feeling like you're some kind of driving god, some kind of Chris Harris-esque. I mean, just look at that. Anyway, sadly, we're not a million miles away from going to the airport. We're nearly done with our time on the ice. But I hope you enjoyed that. I know our primary reason for coming here was to film the podcast, and then just to create some content here was a little bit more challenging than I thought. Oh, I've done that nicely. Come on. This one's tricky. So you're left, then Scandi flick. Oh, I've just messed that one up badly. Anyway, you take care, guys. Drive safe. Scandi flick that way.